Welcome to another edition of RCE. This is Brock Palen. You can find us online at rce-cast.com. There's all the old episodes there, an RSS feed where you can find everything about all of us. I have again here Jeff Squyres, one of the authors of OpenMPI from Cisco Systems. Jeff, thanks again for your time.
Sure, Brock. Yeah, today we're doing something on the education venue, which I think is awesome because it directly relates to our field, but it's also about bringing new people to the field and bringing them up and all these kinds of things. So give us a little explanation of this.
Yeah, so today we're going to have a guest talk to us about something I believe is pronounced Shodor. He will correct this for me, but it's an organization that appears to be focused on education more. So, Bob, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself and then give us an overview of what Shodor is?
Okay, my name is Bob Panoff. I'm one of the founders and the executive director of the Shodor Education Foundation, or simply called Shodor. I used to be a physics professor, and one of the things that I developed with my colleagues in math and computer science was an interdisciplinary approach to research and teaching, which everyone calls computational science these days, but wasn't so much so 25 years ago. In the course of developing what we wanted to do in the classroom and in the computational laboratory, we found that the training of faculty through workshops was a very important piece, and that's something that we have focused on, and it was really the reason Shodor came into existence.
Greetings. I'm the Director of Education Outreach Activities for the NSF-funded Exceed project, as well as for the NSF-funded Blue Waters project. And I spend my time at the National Center for Supercomputing Applications at the University of Illinois.
So when you say training of faculty and in education, you're not talking about training faculty in computational science. You're talking about training faculty in the education of things they probably already know.
Well, it's a little bit of both, because in the United States, there is only one profession in which the individuals practicing that profession get absolutely no training in the conduct of what they're doing, and that is college professor. So if someone is going to be teaching with modeling and simulation, they perhaps have never seen that as a method, even though they may be modeling and simulating all the day long. But to teach with models and simulations as content and method is something that's new to most faculty. But in many cases, we've also had to teach faculty about modeling and simulation because it's not necessarily native to their own experiences, especially in biological sciences, in the social sciences. We find a lot of people say they went into biology because they love science but didn't want to have to do any math. And so we often have to introduce them to the power of modeling, simulation, interactive visualization, and then help them bring that into the classroom as well.
So we're overloading some terms here, and so what I want to know is what you just described. You're actually talking about encouraging teaching with the use of some of these computational resources that the rest of us tend to use for our research, and we actually focus on computation. But you're talking about they're just another tool for teaching possibly anything.
Right, and it's not just another tool because it's also the content of what's being taught, that people need to know that what we're learning in astronomy is not just by looking in telescopes, that what we do with models of galaxies and colliding galaxies is much more the practice of the everyday computational scientist than simply analyzing data. So it's an important part. What we like to kid about is the breathing mode. We're interested in both computational science education, which is using computational models and simulations and the analysis of data to teach the content of physics, chemistry, biology, the social sciences. But we also teach computational science, which is how to build the model, how to construct the model, how to test the model, how to be sure that you know that you're not only solving the right problem, but that you're solving the problem right. So we talk about computational science education and also computational science education. And Shodor's engaged and has been for 20 years now in the practice of both.
Now, how did you come to recognize this as a problem that needed to be solved? Or put differently, how did this all get started?
Well, in the old days, I was a physics professor, and I was also the director of education at NCSA. And there was an opportunity through discussions with the National Science Foundation that we could be running a substantial number of workshops that the National Science Foundation would be willing to pay for. Unfortunately, the organizations that I had worked for at the university and center level did not necessarily want to take on a grant in which the bulk of the funding was participant costs. And the simple reason is there's no overhead. It would cost more than we would be bringing in, they said, for us to run these workshops. And so Shodor really was created to have an independent, nonprofit, 501c3, whatever jargon you want to use, approach to doing faculty enhancement, for helping faculty to be better at what they do and how they do it, without necessarily distracting a university or the supercomputing centers from their concern about the bottom line and the actual cost of the grant. So Shodor was really this new idea of being an independent player, so that by day, most of us who ended up working at Shodor would be professors at universities, but on our own time, we would run these workshops for other faculty. Then I had a wonderful opportunity. In fall of 1994, 20 years ago this fall, I was diagnosed with kidney cancer, and they gave me a look at the life expectancy versus size of tumor data, which was a scatter plot that went to 0 at 10 centimeters. And since my tumor was 21 centimeters, of necessity, they gave me an opportunity to think about what did I want to do for the next 6 months. And the answer was, let's work on getting Shodor up and running, and I can always come back and be a physics professor later.
So you mentioned that the university professor is the only profession where you're not actually trained to teach, but you're expected to. But primary, secondary education, that is the case, but we definitely don't see these sorts of tools being used there. Does Shodor work in that space, secondary education?
Yes, we do, but we also do it primarily through changing the experience of the undergraduate student and their professors. People ultimately teach the way they were taught, not the way they were taught how to teach. So, by example, if someone was in a chemistry class and they never saw computational chemistry and they were only lectured to, but they had a science teaching methods class in the School of Education that recommended using models and simulations, when that high school teacher gets into their own classroom, she's probably going to be lecturing to her students because that's how she learned chemistry. And so where we're seeing more of this happening is when we take these workshops that are funded by NSF through Exceed or through other grants, when we bring these faculty together and they change the undergraduate experience, then the students in those classes are going to either be future graduate students and perhaps future professors themselves, and many of them are going to be future middle school, elementary, or high school teachers. So depending upon how those things are going, we can make that effect. So we do have direct workshops for middle school and high school teachers. We have workshops for the faculty who teach the content of math and science at the undergraduate level. We have not been as successful, and in some ways it hasn't hurt us because of what I said, in working with as many schools of education as we had hoped. But it's really that introductory course as a freshman or sophomore, when you see biology or chemistry or physics for the first time and you see how to learn it and explore it. If dynamic models are part of that experience of learning, it will become part of the experience in their teaching.
Okay, now what you just said there reflects my own experience in education. I never saw simulation or modeling until college. What do you have middle school teachers show in terms of dynamic models and